What's going on, listeners? Welcome back to Matt Goes to the Movies, and we are getting back into the Mummy franchise, and we are taking a trip back 5,000 years before the first Mummy, uh, before the first Mummy movie in the official timeline, and we are going to review The Scorpion King, starring Dwayne The Rock Johnson, long before he was a mega movie star. This was actually his first starring role, and something that was interesting to go back and watch because this is very 2000s. I'm not saying that's I'm not saying that's bad. Um, but boy, does this movie show some of its age and what movies were back in the day, so to speak. But Rob, yeah, funny thing because again, like I said, this was well before The Rock was a huge movie star, just his first starring role. Interesting rewatch.
Yeah. Um, you're right. This was his first starring role. He had that smaller part in the previous Mummy film, The Mummy Returns, as the Scorpion King, and that made them, decide to go ahead and spin that off into this film, his first, major starring role. And who would have known at that time that this would have turned into one of the most bankable stars in Hollywood? I mean, The Rock can open a movie just on his name alone in ways that I don't know, maybe half a dozen ish, and that might be a lot. That might be way too high. Other actors in Hollywood could right now. Like, other than The Rock, how many other actors could just on their name alone open a movie and have it be profitable? I mean, it used to be Will Smith. Like
Mm-hmm.
pre-slap Will Smith was that guy. Tom Cruise at various points. I still think Tom Cruise probably is that guy. Um, I don't know. How many others are there?
Yeah, I mean, he was really being positioned. I mean, the Scorpion King came out. Um, he was being positioned as like this big, like this action hero. Like they were really trying to make him be the next like Arnold, the next Stallone. Was some of the things that happened. I mean, he did the Rundown in 2003, Walking Tall in 2004. He did do that quick little trip to do, you know, the Game Plan and the Tooth Fairy. Um, but you look at these movies that he did. He had Faster that came out in 2010. Race, I mean, way before Race to Witch Mountain, Snitch, Gridiron Gang. He Doom, which oof, he was Be Cool. The Other Guys, Get Smart, like all of these movies in various voice roles, uh, really took off in the Fast and the Furious franchise. I think that's really when he really got noticed, as like, holy cow, because once that hit and he was in Fast Five, I mean, he did Hercules, he did Skyscraper, Rampage probably couldn't have opened up with any other person at the time other than The Rock.
And you mentioned I think was it Skyscraper? Was that the one where he was like an amputee and the
Yes.
building was falling? I
Yep.
didn't see it, but I remember seeing a trailer for it going, there's nobody else you can put in
Mhm.
that role that people will buy tickets for to see this movie the way they're presenting it right now besides him.
Yeah. He did San Andreas, Journey to the Mysterious Island, um, Central Intelligence, Jumanji, Baywatch. Like,
He's got
good.
a lot of stuff in his filmography where it's him running around the jungle in a khaki colored shirt.
Yeah, there's actually a really funny meme that it's
Yeah,
actually a picture of him, and it's like, this is 4 different movies, and he's
right.
literally wearing the exact same outfit.
Yep.
Um, the funny thing is if you're on Google and you type in The Scorpion King and you click the cast button, they don't even show The Rock on the cast.
Really?
Yep. He's not even on the cast listing. and he's the
That's
main
surprising.
star of the movie.
Well, because let's just go ahead and get this out of the way. This is a very forgettable film. This is, as you
Yes.
said, it's very much it's a it's a sign of the times. It is a film of its time, early 2000s. It's got all the new metal you want on the soundtrack. Um, if it wasn't for the fact that this was part of the Mummy franchise and The Rock's starring role, his inaugural starring role, this would just be consigned to the dustbin of history with, probably 100 other movies that came out during this time frame that were sort of okay-ish action movies that either went straight to DVD, straight to Blockbuster. Remember, kids, when Blockbuster was a thing? Like,
Oh,
they would have, like, and it's funny because we even talked about how the sequel to this movie, The Scorpion King 2, was a direct to Blockbuster movie,
yep.
back before it would just go straight to streaming, and that doesn't even really have the stigma it once did. But this is this is a straight to like Tubi or Voodoo kind of movie, that is, if it wasn't for those two things, nobody would even remember this thing existed.
No, I mean, the funny thing is at the time though, it did very well at the box office. I mean, again, you hear these numbers now, and it's kind of funny because maybe people think, but back in 2002, um, a $36 million weekend was really well, especially considering the type of movie that it was, ranking number 1 at the box office, largest opening in April, um, held on to number 1, for 3 weeks it was, and $60 million budget and $180 million. So, overall, this movie was successful, but if you go back and look at this movie, one of the things that you can sit there and really, really get from rewatching this movie is if you didn't know it back then, and there were certainly people who said this, you could see the makings of at the time it was Dwayne Johnson. He really didn't want The Rock. He wanted to be as far away from his WWE persona as possible and make it as an actor. Um, you could see there was the acting chops there. You can definitely see the charisma. Like, if you didn't know The Rock, really, if you never watched WWE, but you're like, okay, I know who this guy is. Um, I think there's a lot here that shows the early screen presence and like charismatic, likable guy, depending. Um, that he would kind of become. I think a lot of that shines through in this movie, even if the movie is mostly forgettable.
It does show what will become of a very credible action star, that can keep the dramatic moments in between action set pieces moving. I actually really liked him in Walking Tall. I've liked him in several
Yeah.
movies that I was kind of surprised. Like, wait, the wrestler? Because I guess it doesn't seem so crazy now, but back
No.
then, like having a wrestler, a fake fighter, kind of cross over into the realm of true like Hollywood star, action films was not like a guaranteed. Like John Cena, major star now, certainly owes a lot to The Rock paving the way for him. That was not like a guaranteed sort of like that would work. Did you ever see the movie with Hulk Hogan in it called Suburban Commando that was like
Yep.
terrible?
I was just gonna say that because really before The Rock, what people have for wrestlers crossing over into movies is, you know, Suburban Commando, No Holds Barred. It
Yeah.
was Hulk Hogan, and while those movies today are considered, like cult favorites because so bad they're good, um, at the time they were just critically panned, and it wasn't what it was now, where those movies are looked at in good light just because they're entertaining. It was, Jesus, these guys can, like. they cannot do this. So he
Lest we
did.
forget Jesse the Body Ventura.
Yeah, that's true. And okay, and Rowdy Piper, but I mean his scene and I'm here to kick ass and chew bubble gum, like,
It's one of the
but
greatest lines of all time. Let's be
yeah,
real.
that was a dirty word, so to speak. Wrestlers coming into movies and actually being good. Um, and while he's not great, um, again, there's definitely the okay, I could see this guy, and I liked him in Walking Tall. I liked him in The Rundown. Um, Journey to the Mysterious Island, which was a follow up to originally the Brendan Fraser movie. Um, Race to Witch Mountain he was in, and I saw those because of the kids, but I did like him. I don't know if I was a little biased because I was a huge wrestling fan, and I was watching wrestling when Rock was at his peak in WWE and things like that. But um, I certainly think he does some good things here. But one of the things, Rob, with this movie, I immediately this opening scene laughed
Mm.
because when he comes in and starts fighting, is he on the super soldier serum? Because he shoots those arrows, and if you remember, Rob, I don't know if you caught this, but he shoots arrows. He does it at first. Um, he shoots the arrows through the smoke, and the guys go flying. But then he shoots three more, and a guy literally acts like he was shot out of a cannon and shoots through the house that they're in, or the hutch, or whatever you want to call it, and like literally flies up into the sky. Like, did you catch that guy?
The very first note that I wrote is that this opening scene has some of the worst air ratchet work I've ever seen. Since when does an arrow have the force to launch a man upwards 30 feet and through a roof? This is utter nonsense. That's literally, I just read it verbatim. That's what I wrote down. First
Yeah,
note I made.
it's it was unbelievable. I was like, what the hell is that? Like, how strong is this guy supposed to be? Like, what is going on here?
There's multiple times with really just, it's almost like they bought or rented the air ratchet and the air ram for this movie, and the stunt coordinator was convinced that he needed to get his money's worth out of it
Yes.
because it is so overused. There are just palace guards flying through the air because physics got turned off or something like that, for reasons that make no sense at all. And okay, so you're trying to, convince us he's badass and he's, this great warrior, but it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make sense with that, and we talked about too this movie being very 2000, very 2000s. Um and it's every single scene, and I think one of the only things that makes this movie actually watchable is actually The Rock's charisma. Is He has some pretty good comedic timing. He's got a good on-screen presence because there are so many things, like you said, this movie is just it is forgettable. And I think if you remember anything of this movie, it's him, because not there's not a lot that happens. There's not a set piece that draws you back. There's not a really great action scene that you're like, we've talked about it before, a YouTube moment that you would, throw on. Um, because there's a lot of cliches in this movie. There's a lot of just
Oh yeah.
by the numbers. And, it starts when he's supposed to, you know, they're him and the three remaining Acadians are hired to go in, kill a sorceress who can predict the future. So this king is never challenged, and just again, very, very typical for this, for these types of movies. And why doesn't he kill her? That's the job. He has no loyalty but the mission. And we get jobs done, but I mean, let's just face it, he saves her because she's hot.
Yeah.
Like that's what it boils down to. She's
Yeah.
good looking. She's good looking. Like that's it. That's the only reason that he saves her.
She's alive because of pretty privilege. If that
Yes.
was a fat dude, dead. Movie over, roll credits.
Yep. Yeah. Right. 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 Exactly. Nope. Because she shows midriff and has a pretty face. It's like, oh well, I guess I should get to know you. Like, like-
Exactly. Well, and it's funny because when we did the first two movies in the Mummy series, we both had moments of those two films that we couldn't wait for the movie to get to because we look forward to them so much every time we watch those movies. It's like, oh, good, it's this scene now. Yay, I'm excited. This is fun. Like those movies are charming. Those movies are just engaging and just a total amount of fun to have. And this one, I even said at the time, God, it's been years since I've seen it. I don't really remember much about it. I think I made that comment to you.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because I have vivid memories of very like standout scenes of The Mummy. I have no memories of this movie. I
No.
just finished watching this 20 minutes before we rolled tape, and I've already forgotten most of it. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing memorable about this. And just nothing tends to stand out. You mentioned some of the humor lands, some of it doesn't. It's very paint by numbers. It's very much a product of its times. The humor is very immature. It really is. This does not hold up well today. The CG is garbage. I mean, those fire ants in the beginning, they're
Mhm.
bad. They're not plastic Dwayne Johnson bad, but they're bad. There's a cobra towards the end of this movie that is abysmally bad, like just awful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's again, it is so forgettable. I didn't remember going back and watching this. I didn't remember a single yeah, and some of it came back to me once I saw it because that's just how I am with movies, but like thinking about this movie before rewatching it, I really couldn't remember like a single thing except for like I did remember that closing shot of like him standing there like holding up the bow um with Cassandra. Like I remembered that. Um but I couldn't really think of anything that happened in this movie before I watched it again.
I didn't even remember the whole thing about the sorceress with Kelly Hugh. Like I forgot all of that stuff because again, it just been so long and really just nothing stood out. I mean, there are a couple of funny lines, like when he's running around with the kid towards the beginning, he's like, "I'll kill half and you kill half." Like that was actually a funny moment for me. There's another funny moment during the escape later, which there's the kid throwing the coin in the wishing well, and then that's when the sorceress comes out, and like that's actually funny in a very immature humor sort of way. That kind of doesn't really hold up as well anymore, but there's a few moments that are actually kind of funny, but overall, like there's not a joke that's so laugh out loud great. Like I guess you could look at the character of Arpid, the guy that helps him throughout. He was supposed to be killed early and ends up kind of being his helper. Kind of reminds me a lot of Rob Schneider's character from Judge Dredd. Like I felt like so
Oh
many
yeah.
crossovers between those two characters. They felt like they were pretty much like it's like, hey, you can copy my homework, but just make sure you change it a little. Like that's sort of what it felt like to me. And there's parts that he's legitimately funny. Like he's not quite in the Jar Jar realm of comedic character that's actually annoying. Like he's not there. He's he's not in the same zip code, but he's probably in the same area code, I think, where it's like he's getting kind of close. I mean, dude gets knocked out like 4 or 5 times in this movie. He gets punched out by The Rock at least 2 or 3 times. He gets his lights turned out by like 2 or 3 other characters. There's absolutely no way he finishes the events of this film without CTE. Like he's constantly getting punched in the head and going unconscious.
Right, exactly. It, he does have some funniness, but it was Yeah, I thought the one funny part is towards the end when, after he wins, which again, that whole that whole closing battle too is just, you know, pulling the arrow out of his back and it's
Ugh,
oh my god, it's like, okay, like
because
what's
that's the
gonna
one that doesn't have the barbs.
right, what's gonna happen. Why is this in slow motion? What but I did chuckle and I laughed because when she's like, "Oh, I see, an era of peace and prosperity, but it, won't last forever." However, she says it, and he's like, "Oh, I thought, you couldn't see anything after." Because again, another typical thing, like, of course, they have to have sex in the movie, like,
Right.
of
This
course
movie came
that,
out in 2002. Yes.
yeah, of course that has to happen. But I did laugh at that because again, his just delivery on it and his facial expression. Um, that was funny.
But the battle that you're talking about that happens kind of like right before that, the one-on-one stuff where it's just Matthias and Memnon, or like he's fighting kind of like one or two palace guards, it doesn't do anything new. It doesn't do anything groundbreaking. It's nothing memorable. Again, there's, like you said, there's not a YouTubeable moment there where you're
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, I wanted to see that move. That was cool. But it's effective. It works. Once you get outside, kind of on the palace grounds, that's when it gets really bad. Like the 1 versus 7 stuff is awful. Like they've got a very, very petite woman who's taking on like army regulars pretty easily, and it's pretty bad. Just a lot of guys waiting around just waving swords in the air, kind of waiting their turn to get their ass kicked. It's it you know the choreography is pretty bad, the cinematography is pretty bad there. The fact that the sorceress is able to, with no reason to assume she's had martial training, she just picks up a knife and holds her own against like guys that are part of the army. That's kind of dumb, and that doesn't work. Also, why does she think that a snake is a good defensive weapon when Memnon's holding a steel sword?
Yeah.
Like she's holding it as though like that's an equivalent defensive tool, and it's not. It's organic and would just as likely sink its teeth into her forearm as it would like you know attack him
Y
until it gets its head chopped off. Like that whole bit was, especially because the CG is so
so bad.
just bad, just awful.
Yeah, it is the CG in this is not very well done. Um, even the battle of, between Matthias and, um, B is it Baltzar? How does he pronounce it again? Michael Clark
Balthazar.
Duncan's character?
Yeah, Balthazar.
Yeah, I mean, even that's just the so typical, "Oh, we're 2 big men. I don't like you. You don't like me. Oh,
But
we
now we're
fight.
best friends.
Yes, I have respect. Let's shake." Like, oh my god, like,
I'll
the
say your catchphrase, you say mine.
right, like, the ultimate again, any movie like this any action movie like this where you have, like, 2 big like, the ultimate, supposed dick measuring contest where it's like, who the frig acts like this? Like, legitimately. Like,
Right.
who acts like this in real life? Oh, wait, idiots. Idiots act like this in real life.
The one thing I'm really happy about though was that they didn't try to like, what was The Rock's big move when he was wrestling? Was it the
The
people's
rock
elbow? Was that,
bottom.
oh, the rock bottom? I didn't see them do anything that was overtly pro wrestly. You know what I mean? Like,
No, he does that in it wasn't really until Fast 5 that
yeah,
he actually did any kind of maybe he did it in the rundown. I think he does it in the club scene where he kind of gives a guy a rock bottom, so to
yeah.
speak. Um,
And I apologize to anybody who's listening to this right now that is a big wrestling fan. I watched it a little in the early 2000s, in my dorm in college because everybody was watching it back then. But that's like, I really haven't gotten, been into it for a very, very long time. So I'm not into it. So please don't, don't at
oh,
me. It's not my fault.
yeah. No, I mean, but that was one thing I was surprised at when and
I'm just glad they didn't do that.
it probably was him because, like I said, this was in the time when he really, again, it was this movie was Dwayne Johnson. It didn't say The Rock. It was no, he said, my name is Dwayne Johnson. Like The Rock was WWE. I'm now doing this. My name is Dwayne Johnson. So it was
And I feel like
probably
there was several films after this where it was like produced by WWE Films or something like that. I think Walking Tall and The Rundown both were like produced by
yes,
WWE Films, and it had him as Dwayne The Rock Johnson in there. I remember something about them owning the rights to the character. I don't really remember how that
yes,
worked.
correct. And I think that's because, it was all right. I'm going to try and tap into this a little bit more because it did seem to annihilate some people that he was so, like the people that followed him in wrestling when he first started doing this and being so, nope, I'm Dwayne Johnson. I think he kind of realized like, I need to backtrack on that a little bit because people are kind of taking that personally. Like, hang on a second. Like, yeah, great. Good for you. Happy that you're doing something else, but you, you kind of sound like a dick right now. Like, because you wouldn't even be at this spot if it wasn't for for wrestling. So you don't have to sit there and say, it was kind of like you went a little bit too far, I think, to some people with saying like, no, I want nothing to do with that to, well, yeah, this is just my new thing now. So I think he backtracked a little bit.
Yeah, we've seen other times that professional athletes have crossed over, particularly as mixed martial arts has gotten bigger and bigger, and some of those athletes have crossed over. We've seen George St. Pierre, we've seen Randy Couture, we've seen Ronda Rousey, we've seen Gina Carano, we've seen there's several others that have crossed over, and honestly, I just said Randy Couture. He's in the sequel to this that we will not be reviewing because there's nothing to say about it because it is just terrible. But like there's a scene in a throne room where he's like a sorcerer, I think, and he does, he has an arm bar. And every time Gina Carano's been in a film, she has to,
Yep.
put an arm bar in or something like that. I think George St. Pierre, when he was in Winter Soldier, I think he had to use an Uchimata or something like that. It just, they can't help but,
Did a
have,
Superman punch.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. They had one of those. As these things get bigger, they add that in, and to me, I don't like it. It's just it doesn't make sense. It's kind of scene breaking. Like, I recognize these people are athletes from other places, but like let's make sure whatever they're doing makes sense.
Right, exactly. It's yeah, this Scorpion King series actually released 4. It went up to Scorpion King 4, The Quest for Power. Billy Zane is in one of these. Um yeah, actually I think was there a 5th one? Yes, there was the 5th one, The Scorpion King, the is it Book of Souls.
Are you sure
The,
that wasn't
so
a Blair Witch sequel?
Right, I know. And it's funny because Roy Nelson was in the 4th one, who was a UFC an
Roy
MMA
Big
guy.
Country Nelson?
Yep, he was in that. Like you said, Randy Couture's
They put
in.
a good old boy in ancient Egypt?
Yep. So they went. God, I didn't realize there were actually that many. I remember I did watch the second one, and I think I watched part of the third one just because I saw it. But like, I threw it on. Um, like, just laying in bed like I was gonna go to because I was going to bed and just fell asleep and never turned it back on. Um, but wow, 5 of these. That is that's wild.
It's probably four more than should have been, and maybe even five more.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, this was supposed to be, a sequel with Dwayne The Rock Johnson, that got scrapped. And then I don't know if you remember this, Rob, but way back in 2020, um, there was actually a remake that they were gonna do, like just start over. Um, and that Dwayne Johnson was gonna serve as a producer for it. And it was gonna be Universal and 7 bucks. I actually did some research. 7 bucks Productions were going to reboot this, and nothing really ever came of it.
No, he just went on to be in Fast and the Furious
Right.
23.
Yep, exactly. So Interesting, interesting thing here, and I often wonder, you know, I would have been interested because I really don't have much more to say about um, I really don't have a lot more to say about this movie, but I do wonder after watching this again and, The Mummy Returns and things like that, some of his character just doesn't line up with how this movie ends to, oh, he has the battle and then all of us, because like in The Mummy Returns, it really makes it seem like he was just this warlord and he, prays to Anubis to spare his life after he loses a battle, which, is not the portrayal in this movie. So I always wondered if a sequel would show maybe him becoming more of like a dictator, like warlord type of leader, as opposed to what we got at the end of this movie. Because his character does not line up when you actually think about these movies together.
Not at all. He is clearly a villain from the start of when we meet him in The Mummy Returns. He is not a good dude. He is a feared person. He is somebody who's despised and hated. And then he comes out as the plasticky, worst looking piece of CG that's ever been created. Uh,
That's a Dreamcast. Like that is still, we talked about, but that is a Dreamcast level cutscene character. It's unbelievable.
So my youngest daughter has this app on her school iPad called Flip Clip where she can make little like line drawings and animate it. And I've seen better like character animation in her line drawings than what they did for The Mummy Returns.
Yeah.
But I digress. But yeah, and they show him here as like this benevolent ruler that is beloved by all of these people. They celebrate him, they worship him, and it does seem very odd that they go from that to where we first meet him in the Mummy Returns. I'm not sure that was really well thought out. But then again, what was in this movie?
Yeah. No, it's
There's
go
There's one
go
other
ahead.
scene I do want to kind of touch on here. So they've got this whole idea that she only keeps her powers as long as she keeps her virginity, which is kind of a dumb idea to begin with. But okay, whatever. Then it turns out that wasn't really the case, anyways. But I'm always fascinated. So they do this scene where Memnon pulls out these big clay pots and has these dudes bring in like 4 snakes for 6 pots or whatever, and he's like, okay, you have to put your hand in and pull out the 2 pots that don't have anything to prove that you still have your sight. And I'm just fascinated by this concept that villains have all this complex stuff just laying around for them when they call for it. Like Memnon just has these people ready to bring him clay pots and snakes, ready to do the is it snake test. Like he just has this stuff. Like he just fills out like requisition orders. Like, all right, guys, just make sure you've got some snakes laying around and might need those later. Get some clay pots just in case I got a tester. Like they just have this stuff. And he just like, in most cases, they either snap their fingers and guys just know, oh, it's that finger snap, or he claps twice. And these guys just bring out all this stuff because they just knew like, oh, the 2 clap thing, we've practiced this, everybody. That means bring the snakes and bring the clay pots. Like it's amazing to me how this stuff just works in movies with villains.
Right, yeah, it is it's always funny, but yeah, I don't have anything else because again, I mean, certainly not the worst, certainly not even close to the worst thing I have seen, um, but just on all levels, one of my final thoughts is just an all-around forgettable movie. There there's
Yep.
there is nothing that would ever and all of his film roles, I could go back and watch Walking Tall. I could go back and watch The Rundown. Um, I could certainly, for some reason, if it was, I mean, I can't think of one right now, but watch Race to Which, like a reason to watch one of his kids' movies. The Tooth Fairy, I think, is dumb. The Game Plan, I actually like. I actually think the Game Plan's kind of a sweet, you know, kind-hearted movie. Um, but this is probably like this might be at the top of the list for like his well-known films. that I would just go, there's no reason to ever watch this again. Because it's not so bad that, like, oh my God, I'd watch it to laugh at it like I do with movies. Like, this is like one of his films that I'm like, there's no reason to ever watch this again. And there's no reason to like ever talk about this for like movie history. Unless it was like a trivia night and somebody was like, what's the first starring role that Dwayne The Rock Johnson ever had? Then you would need to know this.
Yeah. I would rewatch probably almost anything else he's been in that I've seen. Like I would like Jumanji is great. I watch that anytime. It's fun. Like that's fun. But yeah, if we were to assign this like a rewatchability rating, it's extremely low. I struggle to think about why I would ever watch this movie again. And I
Yeah.
don't think I've got a good reason. I've probably seen this movie for the last time in my life now.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. So yeah, let's grab some popcorn and head into popcorn time. And I'll go first, and I will say that it's weird that I'm gonna say this because I've disliked things way worse than this that I've given better ratings to, but because this movie is so forgettable, and like you said, it's almost as soon as you're done watching it, it's almost over. It's almost over in your head, like it's almost erased immediately. Anything that has happened, you almost forget about it. Um, because there's no good soundtrack. I mean, what? I think the only song I remember is Godsmack, I Will Survive. Is that Godsmack?
I Stand Alone. Yeah, it's
I
the
Stand Alone.
end. It's the song at the end credits.
Yeah. I think that's the only thing, but this is a one bucket movie for me just because it is absolutely forgettable.
Yeah, it's not in that Batman and Robin so bad that it's good. It's not in that like Daredevil with Ben Affleck where you watch it just to absolutely laugh at the clown show that movie is, um, and didn't have to be. This is 1.5 for me. There are 1.5 bucket movies that I dislike more than this, but
Right.
this is just not like it wasn't worth my time. Like I found myself being very distracted while this was on and not really caring that something was happening that I might miss.
'Cause you don't
Again,
miss anything. You really only need you only need the beginning to know what his mission is and to watch the end. If you watch the first 20 minutes of this movie and the last 15 for 35 minutes, you know everything you need to know about this movie.
yeah, it serves little consequence. Its existence doesn't seem to matter. So yeah, I'm going 1.5, and I'm honestly, are you surprised that you rated this movie this low? Like thinking back to
Yes.
like 2 months ago when we were doing The Mummy and The Mummy Returns, would you have imagined that you would have given this movie a one bucket and I would have given it 1.5? Because I thought for sure I would have rated this higher.
Yeah, I thought I would probably go a 3.
Yeah,
Max a 3. Um Just because of the fact that, like, okay, I don't remember again, I didn't remember it, but I was like, I don't remember hating it. I don't remember I don't remember ever hating this movie, and I still don't hate this movie, I just don't care. Um, but no, after watching it, I was like and this is, what we sit there and say of like, okay, bucket rating out of 5, whatever the case may be. Um because again, certainly there are worse movies than this, but for my personal enjoyment, it's a 1 because there's no enjoyment to be had in this movie for me.
yeah. No reason to ever revisit it. Limited reason to ever talk about it amongst a group of friends. Like very limited reason to just even acknowledge that the film exists.
Yeah. Um, so that'll do it for The Scorpion King. We're going to end up finishing this series off with The Scorpion King: Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. Now, I remember that movie much better than I remember The Scorpion King. I remember absolutely not liking it, not despising it, but not liking it and being severely disappointed. Um, has time changed that opinion? I don't know yet because I haven't done my rewatch. I will be doing that here within the coming weeks so that we can jump back on and review it. But that will be our conclusion for the Mummy series. And yeah, I will be curious to see what time has changed, if anything, good or bad, for Tomb of the Dragon Emperor.
I've seen it once, and it was a long, long, long time ago. I remember being disappointed because it didn't have that fun charm of the Mummy series, and the fact that at the time that I had seen this, I was like a massive Jet Li fan.
Yes.
I was studying a lot of Chinese martial arts myself, so like it was something that was like I was really into, like because he was like the best, and his movies were great. I still love going back and watching some of his stuff that came out originally in China and eventually made its way over here. I mean, Fist of Legend is just it's just like the best kung fu movie that's out there. I might die on that hill. You can say a lot of great things about Bruce Lee, and I won't argue if Enter the Dragon is your favorite kung fu movie ever. I won't argue with you, but Fist of Legend by Jet Li is it's brutal, it's clever, it's interesting. The choreography is amazing. It's so good, and I've probably seen it 100 million times. And when that came out, I just remember being, oh, why? So I am looking forward. I'm going to watch it with fresh eyes because I'll have remembered virtually nothing about it. So I'll be curious to see if my opinion has changed either, and we will break it down for you, the listener.
Yeah, just one last thing before we go with Jet Li. Um, when this movie was coming out, this is when I was really on like a Jet Li kick because the Tomb of the Dragon Emperor came out in 2008. But I remember watching his movies like not originally when they came out because he had like some of the movies that I'm talking about. Romeo Must Die came out in 2000, Unleashed 2005, Cradle to the Grave 2003, The One, which is one of my like sleeper favorites
Yeah,
for Jet Li is The One, or just one of my sleeper movies.
not well
War,
reviewed, but it's better than people give it credit for. Oh,
yes,
War is so good.
War with Jason Statham. Um, even Lethal Weapon 4 with him in it. But I was on sort of a Jet Li kick. Oddly, right before this movie was like, oh, this is gonna be, so it was I was like, oh man, Jet Li. So I was into it for a very different reason and really looking forward to it. Um, because of the simple fact that like I had just watched some of these Jet Li movies right before it had come out and was like on a really big kick with him. So, to have that and then also too, it wasn't as much as I am now, but to know that Rachel Weisz was not coming back for this movie, hearing some of the things and finding out that she just didn't want to do the movie because she didn't like the script was like, ooh, that's a little bit worrisome. And then at the time, and again, I'll be interested to see this, seeing the lack of chemistry between Brendan Fraser and his co-star Maria Bello, who now played Evelyn O'Connell. It was just like, holy crap! Like these two, like in the first two movies, you believed that Rick O'Connell and Evelyn, or like Brendan and Fraser and Rachel Weisz, like you could have believed that they were a couple in real life. And this one, it was like, oh shit, like what are you two doing together? Because you look like you hate each other.
Yeah, and that stuff matters. That believability, that everything that makes a deposit in the bank of willing suspension of disbelief helps. And if you stop believing in something, like that's why, we complain about bad CG a lot, but it matters. The immersion matters. When you are reminded that you're watching a movie, it breaks the immersion. It breaks that fourth wall. You stop suspending your disbelief, and it takes you out of the experience, and that's why these things matter.
Yeah, yep, exactly. So we will see if anything, if our opinion has changed on that because I believe I've seen this movie twice. I know I actually went to the theater and saw it, and then I actually know that I watched it once at home again. At a time it was on FX. So I have seen this movie twice, but it has been an incredible feels like a lifetime since I've actually seen this movie. I do remember things about it. I do remember specific scenes and specific moments from this movie. So uh be curious to go back, rewatch it, finish up this series, and jump right back into Halo this week and episode 4, which I'm excited for to see what we get and then discuss what we're going to do next and get back to more consistency. I know we talked a little bit today of maybe looking at the uh, Olympus Has Fallen series with Gerald Butler, but excited to get back into it.
Yes, would definitely be in favor of that. And so, listeners, if you're interested in some Gerard Butler-ness, like we're discussing, let us know. Tell us that you're interested in that, and we will make sure we add it to the list. You can also email the show, mgttmpodcast@gmail.com. That is how you can get in touch with the show. That's how you can send us your thoughts on any episodes that we've done or episodes you would like to see. General feedback is always appreciated. Make sure that wherever you're downloading this from, go ahead and just rate this episode. Just go ahead. Just pause it now. Take a minute, unless you're driving, in which case, keep your eyes on the road. But then when you get to your destination, as long as you aren't running late for work, pause the episode, rate the episode, give it 5 stars. Just go ahead. What's it going to hurt you? Nothing. It takes like no time. Give it 5 stars. You know you want to. All the cool people are giving the episode 5 stars. And make sure you subscribe while you're at it. And check out Matt Goes to the Movies everywhere you get your favorite social media. All the good ones, you can find Matt Goes to the Movies. Interact with the show.
Yep. All right. Well, listeners, thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and we will see you back here for The Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor to finish off this series. Thanks for tuning in.